Violence is everywhere. It's all around us. On TV, in the news, music, video games, you name it. All throughout history, all kinds of art has been violent. To further highlight the topic at hand, it's important to note the distinction between violence and graphic violence. One of the earliest examples of violence on film I can think of is the Odessa Staircase Massacre scene in Sergei Eisenstein's 1925 classic, The Battleship Potemkin. Here, we witness several people shot to death, and the people running for their lives, and even a woman and her son killed in cold blood. This is a violent scene, perhaps as violent as a scene can get. Violence has always played an intricate part in cinema since the birth of the celluloid image. In the early years of film, if a violent act occurred, it either happened off-screen or was handled subtly.
Rated by Top of the World!
The Wild Bunch, released in 1969, changed all that. Regarded as the first film to portray violence in an almost elegant way, The Wild Bunch set a precedent. Throughout the film, men die on screen, but instead of editing to shield the viewer, the men spurt blood. The gunshots are followed by flesh-tearing noises. The men die slowly and painfully. Since then, film violence has become increasingly graphic. Even films we don't really consider violent are actually quite violent. The difference between violence and graphic violence is the actual vivid, brutal, and often realistic depictions of violence. Detractors of graphic violence often state that violence is usually a cheap way to keep audiences entertained, considering that it's easier now to show more real-life type violence on film. Audiences readily respond to graphic violence, thus the rise in popularity of slasher films, and more recently, the gore porn trend of the mid to late noughties. I'd go far as to say that movies need violence to work because it often acts as a catalyst for the story to take off. Movie characters rely on violent events happening around them. Without it, what would our protagonist go after? Violence gives stories a moral compass and lets the heroes go after a righteous cause. And this brings us to Quentin Tarantino.
Why do you like making violent movies?
I don't know, it's like asking Judd Apatow, why do you like making comedies?
Tarantino's films are known for compelling characters, amazing writing, terrific soundtracks, and not to mention, an insatiable foot fetish.
Wiggle your big toe.
But the biggest factor Tarantino's films are known for is violence. Gruesome, brutal, relentless, visceral, over-the-top violence.
Why do you so much gruesome, graphic violence? Why not let us imagine
Because it's so much fun, Chan. Get it?
Tarantino's violence has gotten him a lot of attention, both positive and negative.
I'm sitting at home and I'm imagining I'm, the husband of some young couple, and we're just sitting there and thinking, well, what do you want to see tonight, honey? You want to see Forrest? You want to see Forrest Gump? Do you want to see, well, what's that? Well, that's the movie where Tom Hanks plays the retarded guy and, meets John F. Kennedy. Or, oh, okay, well, what else? Well, do you want to see Clear and Present Danger? Well, what's that? Well, that's the new Harrison Ford movie. Or, do you want to see Reservoir Dogs? What's that? Well, that's the movie where the guy gets his ear cut off, And that's how it was thought of. It's thought of the movie where the guy gets his ear cut off. All right.
Hey, what's going on? You hear that?
His style of violence is purely aesthetic. He has stated several times that his movies are pure fiction for the viewers to enjoy. Instead of questioning whether his violence is moral or not, we should just enjoy it. Violence is a way that Tarantino establishes stakes and unpredictability in his stories. Let's take a look at this scene in Jackie Brown.
I'm giving you fucking excuses, man, but I'm telling you, I'm giving you fucking reasons.
Oh, you gonna tell me the reason you lost every goddamn cent I got in the world?
Hey, man.
You gonna tell me reasons? Let me tell you the reason, motherfucker. The reason is, your ass ain't worth the shit no more.
You better fucking back off, man.
This encounter takes place after Lewis kills Melanie in the parking lot and lost Ordell's money. The murder of Lewis, Ordell's friend, is intimate. You feel that as ruthless as Ordell is, it means a lot more to him. Whereas when he kills Beaumont earlier in the film, it feels more routine. When you witness important characters getting killed, you get the sense that anything can happen. After seeing an important character killed and switching to someone else, it puts you in a state of uncertainty because now you know that people you are seeing are potentially expendable. This is something Tarantino has always done since his first movie, Reservoir Dogs.
I can't help but make my stuff funny because I just think of things in a humorous way.
Whether it's the stuck-in-the-middle scene in Reservoir Dogs or the Candyland shootout in Django Unchained, comedy plays a major role in Tarantino's violence. Let's take a look at the Sicilian scene in True Romance. Detective Worley, Dennis Hopper's character, is being interrogated by an Italian mob led by Vincenzo Cocotti, played by Christopher Walken. At a point in the interrogation, Worley realizes that there is no way he's getting out of this alive, and they just torture him until he gives up his son, which he never does. So with a chuckle, he fires back with what the Italian mobsters consider to be the greatest insult possible.
Here's a fact, I don't know whether you know or not. Sicilians were spawned by niggers. The Moors conquered Sicily, and the Moors are niggers.
Your ancestors are niggers.
Hey.
I haven't killed anybody since 1984.
Another example of Tarantino mixing violence with comedy is when Vincent accidentally shoots Marvin in the face in Pulp Fiction.
Man, I don't even have an opinion.
Well, you gotta have an opinion. I mean, do you think that God came down from heaven and stopped? Oh,
What the fuck's happening?
oh man! Oh man, I shot Marvin in the face.
Why the fuck you do that?
Well, I didn't mean to do it. It was an accident. Oh.
It's like someone spilling their coffee. Vincent Vega is completely numb to killing, and unlike Jules, he's unable to see the error of his ways, which ultimately ends up getting him killed by Butch. Now let's look at the Crazy 88 fight scene in Kill Bill. There is no fucking way fountains of blood can spray out of a freshly cut limb like that. The Crazy 88 fight scene is 10 minutes of pure, unadulterated bloodshed. Quentin uses certain cues in his movies that tell us not to take the violence too seriously.
It doesn't mean that it's all a big joke, and it doesn't mean it's all just to laugh it off. It's not all a big joke.
But it's not always fun and games, as Tarantino often uses violence to show something tragic and horrific. The opening scene of Inglourious Basterds is living proof of this. Here, we see General Hans Landa kill a Jewish family under a floorboard, and Shoshana runs out of the house in fear. Landa sees her running and bids her farewell. This is a frightening scene. Tarantino masterfully uses violence in Django Unchained. The Mandingo fight scene and the dog scene are shown to provide social commentary on slavery. These scenes aren't humorous in the slightest. The only humor in the scene is from Leonardo DiCaprio's character, Calvin Candy, cheering at the atrocities of the fight, but it's shot in a way that tells us how horrific and inhumane the slave trade was and the activities people enjoyed for recreation. Sometimes it's a mix of both comedy and tragedy, like in Tarantino's recent film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, specifically the ending. 4 members of the Manson family are sidetracked by an encounter with Rick Dalton in the street while planning to invade the Polanski Tate house. Eventually, 3 of the members find their way into Rick's house instead. Cliff brutally attacks them, assisted by his dog. One of the members falls into Rick's swimming pool, and he burns her alive with the flamethrower. When it's all over, Sharon Tate invites Rick over for a drink. While this scene feels absolutely cathartic, it also feels really gut-wrenching, as it reminds us of a grim reality. The golden age of Hollywood really did end on the night of August 8th, 1969, and the Manson family really did kill Sharon Tate. Quentin has essentially rewritten history to what it should have been, like he did in Inglourious Basterds. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is essentially a fairy tale, or at least the only thing Tarantino will come close to writing a fairy tale. Revenge is a common theme of most Tarantino movies, and with it, violence comes as a package.
You feel that sting, big boy, huh? That's pride fucking with you, see? You gotta fight through that shit.
The most violent characters in Tarantino's films are often the most intelligent and compelling characters in the movie.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
And these characters often seek revenge against an oppressor. It could be against slave owners or racist generals, but it's not exclusively rooting for oppressed members of society. It could also be a woman who was wronged, seeking retribution against a ruthless man, a group of women getting even with the psychotic stalker, or two men setting their racial tensions aside to overcome a conniving female. This is a good way to make us care for the character's cause and enjoy their retribution. But even though scenes from Kill Bill, Pulp Fiction, and Django Unchained are full of blood, bullets, and all-out carnage, there seems to be some sort of rhyme and reason for it.
But why are you so sure that there's no link between enjoying movie violence and enjoying real violence?
I'm going to tell you why I'm so sure. Don't ask me a question like that. I'm not biting. I refuse your question.
Tarantino himself is not a big fan of real-world violence, but he appears to see a huge chasm between actual violence and movie violence. The two are not closely related. At a 1994 press conference, he told Newsday, "Violence is just one of many things you can do in movies. People ask me, where does all this violence come from in your movies? I say, where does all this dancing come from in Stanley Donen movies? If you ask me how I feel about violence in real life, well, I have a lot of feelings about it. It's one of the worst aspects of America. In movies, violence is cool. I like it."
Your ability to make a movie that by any objective standards is among the most violent movies made, but have an audience laugh during the time or come out of the movie smiling. How do you do that?
Well, you can see all kinds of movies, but when a movie really, really does it to me, it's because it's made me feel many different emotions during the course of it, and especially if I can pull off contradictory emotions.
Quentin Tarantino always reminds us that his films are nothing more than fantasy. Their unrealistic aspects are precisely what we as an audience enjoy the most about them. They're cathartic, passionate, and emotional. His movies leave an impact, and his use of violence in them is an important reason for the response his films get. With everything I just mentioned, it really raises the question, can watching film violence cause someone to go out and commit real acts of violence? And the answer to that question is no. You can certainly enjoy movie violence without feeling guilty or feeling the urge to go out and commit violent acts. Film violence can often be therapeutic, and it can provide the right amount of escapism. Viewers trying to escape a grim reality may find it very relieving. And with that said, Tarantino's films are, without a doubt, meant to be enjoyed.
I do believe that I'm the kind of director that I want to play you as an audience. I want to be the conductor, and you're my orchestra. The sounds that I make you to make and the feelings I get you to feel, and then I stop you from feeling those feelings and I give you something else to feel, and then I stop you from feeling that and make you feel something else yet again. Well, if a director can do that, if the director can pull it off, well, that's a real lucky audience member, because you really had an experience that night. You went to the movies. That was worth leaving the house. Because hopefully you're doing it in sync and in unison with other people around you, and you're all having those feelings.
That's a nice touch. Yeah. Thanks.
You read the Bible, Ringo?
Not regularly, no.
Well, there's this passage I got memorized. Ezekiel 25:17.
The path of the righteous man is beset on all sides by the inequities of the selfish and the tyranny of evil men.
Remember when I said this car was death-proof? Well, that wasn't a lie. Only to get the benefit of it, honey, you really need to be sitting in my seat.
Blessed is he who in the name of charity and goodwill shepherds the weak through the valley of darkness, for he is truly his brother's keeper and the finder of lost children. And I will strike down upon thee with great vengeance and furious anger those who attempt to poison and destroy my brothers.
I said tell Miss Laura goodbye.
Bye, Miss Laura.
And you will know I am the Lord when I lay my vengeance upon you.
I want them all to know. They'll all soon be as dead as a rat.
I never gave much thought to what it meant. I just thought it was some cold-blooded shit to say to a motherfucker before I popped the cap in his ass. See, now I'm thinking, maybe it means you're the evil man, and I'm the righteous man. And Mr. 9mm here, he's the shepherd protecting my righteous ass in the valley of darkness. Or it could mean you're the righteous man, and I'm the shepherd. And it's the world that's evil and selfish. And I like that. That shit ain't the truth. The truth is, you're the weak, and I'm the tyranny of evil men.
You hear me talking, hillbilly boy? I ain't through with you by a damn sight. I'ma get medieval on your ass.
But I'm trying, Ringo. I'm trying real hard.